Instead of creating a federal jobs program that actually solves some of the material issues that Americans are facing, like the explosive housing market, we're instead creating a totally unaccountable, unconstitutional Gestapo force, a secret police force in the form of ICE that is at the mercy of whatever the this goddamn president wants to do. This is truly terrifying. Now let's get back to domestic affairs. As the Trump administration is behaving in this incredibly belligerent manner, out and about in broad daylight, talking about how awesome it is that they're just like murdering random people off the coast of Venezuela and how great that is. The American Jobs Report and the report on where the economy is heading is showing dangerous warnings. Let's take a look.
The economy is sputtering. We learned this morning that job growth in the past 3 months has all but ended. There were just 22,000 new jobs created last month, and new revised data showed the economy actually lost jobs in June, the first time that's happened since President Trump's first term, back when most of us were still in isolation during COVID. And unemployment ticked up to 4.3%, the highest in nearly 4 years. An economy that's stalling out is bad news for any president, but particularly for one who got back into the White House in large part because of what voters saw as his economic acumen. When President Trump didn't like last month's jobs report, he fired the head of the agency that compiles it. This morning, he placed the blame on his economic nemesis, the Fed chair, Jerome Powell. Jerome, too late. Powell should have lowered rates long ago. As usual, he's too late. I'm joined by a terrific group of reporters here. Anne-Marie Horton of Bloomberg, CNN's Matt Egan, Abby Livingston of Puck, and Ested Herndon of the New York Times. Matt, take us through some of the numbers and what they mean.
Yeah, Dana, look, this was another brutal jobs report, and this really suggests that after years of historic resilience, the job market is facing some serious trouble right now. I mean, hiring has basically stalled out to almost nothing, right? Just 22,000 jobs added during the month of August. That is a fraction of what economists were expecting. It's crazy to think that not even a year ago, back in December, the economy was adding 300,000+ jobs. Now we're, not even 10% of that. And as you noted, we saw that June was revised lower to show that for the first time since COVID, the U.S. economy actually lost jobs. So that ends this nearly 5-year streak of uninterrupted job growth. That was the second longest streak in American history. It's now over. And then the unemployment rate.
Look, this is not my forte, but from what I understand, at least like through anecdotes and through what I have seen with all the discontent, it doesn't even feel like those jobs that are supposedly new job opportunities, new job openings, people looking to hire employees, any of that is even real. Like I've seen no evidence to whether or not that's even a real situation at all, and all evidence to point to the contrary.
So you mentioned that ticking up from 4.2% to 4.3%. That's not high per se, but it is the highest since late 2021. And Fed Chair Powell, he has said that that's the number one indicator that he's looking at for evidence of weakness in this job market. I think that we shouldn't rule out the possibility that this is just a slow patch and the economy.
People are about to find out that the Biden economy was good. It was the world economy that wasn't. Now you'll have a bad U.S. and world economy. No, it wasn't even good. The U.S. economy wasn't good necessarily. It hasn't been good. Okay? The metrics that we look at, the metrics that we examine to figure out whether or not a liberal capitalist nation's economy is good is already distorted. It's already out of whack. If the U.S. economy was always good, because it was great under Obama, right? Post 2008, post recovery, it was great under Obama. So why did people turn around and vote for Donald Trump the first time? This is a question that one must ask themselves. It's one that I keep repeating. It's one that I keep repeating over and over again. And that is precisely because that economy wasn't working for many Americans already. Okay? That economy already wasn't working for many people. And that's why they wanted to hatch it through the system, through the establishment. They wanted to destroy it. with the hopes of rebuilding. They took a shot in the dark at someone like Donald Trump, who was implementing some populist and dare I say, fake left economics in his campaign. I mean, it's a lie, right? And it obviously clearly was a lie. We know that it was a lie because he didn't legislate that way for 4 years. But the economy wasn't good then either for many working class Americans. And then it got significantly worse during COVID, okay? And then there was another recovery period post-COVID where people were saying, well, you know, metrics look good. Metrics look good. Metrics look good. What are you talking about? It looks good. It's a vibe session. It's a vibe session. You guys are wrong. You guys are wrong over and over again, which led to a lot of animosity amongst the working class Americans who then said, no, f you. I'm going to go with a guy who says the real solution to this is to obviously deport 12 million migrant workers. Now, of course, that wasn't a solution at all. But in the absence of a party with a clear vision, with a clear agenda that addresses the real problems that people were experiencing, people once again took another shot at the dark at the racist guy. And we are seeing the outcome of that. We're seeing the predictable outcome of that, one that I have warned against over and over and over again. Because remember, when we look at the unemployment numbers that are at 4.3%, that's not the entire story. Like I said, a lot of the metrics that we look at, unemployment numbers, for example, or the GDP, they don't show the reality. They don't show the full story. Or we look at the stock market. The stock market is doing great, okay? At a time when there are mass layoffs taking place, the stock market is doing so great. Why? Because they're eliminating redundancies. They're going to make up for it with AI. Is that good for you? You just got fired. No, it's horrible for you. But the stock market is doing well. Okay, well, it exacerbates the income and wealth disparity in this country that causes people to be even more angry, be more mad, demand answers, demand restitution. The goal for someone like myself is to get those people to understand that it's not about deporting Guatemalan and Mexican migrants. That is not going to solve their situation at all, because it's not a Guatemalan migrant that owns your home, that is your landlord. It's not a Guatemalan migrant that is at the board of this corporation that you work at that refused to offer you better benefits, that refused to give you the back pay that you deserve, that is yours by law. Okay? It's your bosses. It's the capital owners. And it is the duopoly that finds bipartisan consensus when it comes down to things that impact you and your loved ones in the most meaningful ways. It's their lack of interest in changing those structural forms of inequality, structural forms of violence that you experience. The affordability crisis being one of the simplest terms to help you understand. So, of course, it's creating a lot of panic right now. You got people saying, look, hiring plans fell to the weakest level of any August on record, and intended job cuts mounted amid broader economic uncertainty, according to outplacement firm Challenger Gray and Christmas. U.S.-based companies announced in August plans to add 1,494 jobs, the fewest for the month in data going back to 2009. Of the 30 industries tracked by Challenger, hiring plans were concentrated in aerospace and defense, industrial goods, and retail. Announced job cuts jumped from a year ago to almost 85,980 and marked the largest August total since 2020. Excluding the impact of the pandemic, the number was the highest for any August since the Great Recession in 2008. Spencer Kimian says, you don't realize how weak the economy is right now. If you have a job, hold on to it for dear life, because if you get fired, it's going to take you years to find another one. But the stock market's doing well, right? I mean, it's hot, 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 right? It's good. It's good. We're doing great. Here are all of the areas of loss for the record. This is the chief economist for the Navy Federal and a columnist at the Washington Post, Heather Long, says the labor market is going from frozen to cracking. Look at how many industries have lost jobs in the past 3 months. Mining lost 13,000. Construction lost 10,000. Manufacturing lost 31,000. Information lost 15,000. Business and professional lost 51,000. Federal government lost 34,000. Finance has zero job gains. The U.S. job market is almost entirely dependent on healthcare. That is not healthy for the economy. And it's especially up because these were the key sectors that Trump was seeking to boost with his tariffs agenda, right? That was the plan, right? It turns out it's actually impacting. Another problem here is not only just a tariffs regime that is causing too much instability, but another problem here is also the deportations. These are areas that These are sectors that have relied on undocumented labor. The proper protocol here should be to document those workers. But instead, the Trump administration has placed the crosshairs upon them and is making it seem as though they are the reason for why Americans are struggling, Americans are suffering. And they're taking these militant actions against these people, and it's actually cooking the companies. If you were to recognize that these are just regular workers, okay, instead of just like adding on the fact that they don't have the documentation or the proper clearance or whatever, okay, because again, that's a matter of just paperwork, right? If you go in and you say you're going to deport like tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people from the labor force in specific sectors, don't you think that's going to cripple the economy? Of course. Even if these guys are like invested in hiring American citizens to make up for the lack of labor, you're firing a bunch of trained employees that have been working in these sectors for years and years and years. Of course, that is going to cause tremendous instability, if not full-blown collapse. And that's where we are. Good, no more quiet quitting or bouncing around to different jobs for these young people. They will be forced to work on the farms. Dude, oh, you are so dumb, okay? And it's going to be kind of funny when, you just don't have any food that you can purchase at the grocery store because you just fantasize about some totally, utterly irrelevant, made-up reason for why the economy is on fire right now, okay? You stupid boomer. The one time I get Hasan is for trolling. Don't do that. Stop LARPing as a dumb, out-of-touch boomer, please. The construction industry has been facing growing labor shortages for years as the workforce ages and fewer Americans seek to work in physical labor jobs. Add to that Trump's stripping legal status from 1 million workers plus mass deportations, things are going to get ugly. At the start of the year, the nation's largest trade organization for contractors projected that they would need to attract an additional 439,000 workers this year just to keep up pace with new construction projects. Yet, as of today, the industry is losing workers. And I said this before, it's not that there aren't available jobs. You can just make new jobs, okay? You can do a federal program. You can do a federal jobs program. There is obviously need for more housing, for example. You could just be building houses with a federal jobs program with good pay, a decent salary, good compensation, good benefits, The issue, however, is that people don't want to do that. People don't want to offer that. The government doesn't want to intervene in the market because that market intervention would actually harm the profit seekers and their primary interest, which is to improve their profit margins. Okay? So the only thing the government is doing is creating a new sector, the Gestapo. That's it. Instead of creating a federal jobs program that actually solves some of the material issues that Americans are facing, like the explosive housing market, we're instead creating a totally unaccountable, unconstitutional Gestapo force, a secret police force in the form of ICE that is at the mercy of whatever the this goddamn president wants to do. This is truly terrifying. And once again, for people who fantasize about the mythological, backbreaking work and the honor and service of that sort of thing, people who don't want to work in those fields at all, people who don't want to work in construction at all, that just like simply say these things from the outside, don't realize, because they've never had a relative that has worked in construction, that has worked in a factory floor. Those people don't want their next of kin to also go into that same sector because they have suffered for years and years. They fucked their backs up, okay? That's the whole reason. They don't want other people to do that. They have been destroyed in the process of doing that. None of these people actually want to do these jobs anyway. So those who actually do take on these backbreaking backbreaking jobs should be paid adequately. They should get the proper clearance, the proper authorization, the proper documentation. They shouldn't be cast aside and discarded to make some of the dumbest, most racist in American society feel as though things are actually going well. because that's all this is. It's to make the dumbest people in the United States of America feel comfortable that there is at least like someone who is worse off than they are. In the same way that in the Reconstruction era, the powerful entities turned around and said, hey, man, look, you're white working class, you're poor as but at least you're not black. At least you're not black. There's always someone you can look down at, you know? A separate industry organization wrote in July that mass deportations and harsh immigration policies like stripping workers of status are likely going to further exacerbate the labor shortages in the construction and cause labor costs to rise 4 to 5% unless there are mass layoffs. Economic growth will continue, but risks of inflation and recession are high. Higher tariffs will raise costs, invite retaliation, may disrupt supply chains. Okay. Harsh immigration and deportation actions will worsen construction labor shortages. Expectation of larger deficits may push interest rates higher. Who could have told you that this was going to inevitably happen? I did, and I'm a dumbass. I'm a stupid ass Twitch streamer. How the was I able to see this ahead of time? How the was I able to warn against this ahead of time when Trump was saying he was going to do this when he was running for office? I said this is only going to worsen the situation overall. It's not only cruel and unusual punishment for no real reason whatsoever other than to satisfy the urges of some of the dumbest races on the planet, because that is a great distraction for the administration to not actually address the material harms that they are experiencing, because those material harms would require to shut off the money faucet to mega corporations and harm their profit margins, right? Any kind of initiative in the direction of socialization is going to harm profit margins, right? And you can't do that. So you have to create this mass distraction to make it seem like immigrants are actually responsible for all the pain that you're experiencing. And then you just keep hitting that note over and over again. And you keep pushing this button over and over again, even if it destroys the economy. Yes, I know Eric Adams is most likely going to drop out of the race. The announcement is coming at 4:30 p.m. I know, it's right here. Mayor Eric Adams to make an important campaign announcement. This comes on the heels of the Trump administration stating that they want to give him a Saudi Arabia ambassadorship job, so he stands off, so he gets out of the race in order to clear the way for Andrew Cuomo, at least, like, so with the hopes that like Andrew Cuomo could pick up more, pick up some of those Eric Adams voters. It's really stupid anyway. But yeah, here, getting back to the Trumponomics nonsense, okay, because we're not done here. There's obviously still a lot more to talk about. Increase in both youth and black unemployment, now at 7.5%, the highest since October 2021, suggested the crackdown on immigration has not created a more favorable job market for the more vulnerable components of the U.S. labor force. Okay? Unemployment rate for 16 to 24-year-olds is now at 10.5%. Once again, this is not the whole story anyway. The unemployment rate in the way that you understand it is not the entire story. There's an underemployment crisis here as well. You know, welcome back. Bidenomics is funny, of course. Related, weirdly underrated dem advantage in Virginia is that the Republican messaging is keep the great economy going, and it's obviously been getting worse. Yeah. Even the Trump administration is hitting the same Brandonization notes, whether it be permanent support for Israel and you know, constantly finding themselves tricked by Israel somehow. Or even the vibe session shit. Ironically enough, their industrial policy has been also worse than the Brandon administration. Somehow. At least the Brandon administration was trying to move the needle in the appropriate direction, albeit marginal, albeit without any sort of checks or balances, without any sort of demands being made from these corporations, and just like opening up the money faucet with the hopes that they actually do the right thing that will benefit the American labor force. It didn't, but still, it was moving in the right direction. And these guys turned around and said, nah, we're moving into the wrong direction. It's amazing. All the while, they're doing the Brandon notes and talking about how, no, it's a vibe session, baby. Shut the fuck up. Here is Mike Conzal, Senior Director, Policy and Research at Economics. What is this? Economic Security Project. It's a bad number. The new numbers that just came in. Just 22,000 jobs. And with revisions, June went negative to minus 13,000. Worse, deeper into the data, you can see that the theory of Trumponomics is failing. It's not too late to change course, but it will require dramatic action they won't take. Let's dig in. They just narrowly dodged a 4.3% unemployment rate last month and got it this month. But these aren't rounding games. You can see a steady increase over the last 2 months. Maybe it's noise, but it's the highest in years, and given everything else, it's worrying. Here's the breakdown by industry. We already covered the breakdown by industry. It's like a lot of the sectors that Trump said he was going to bring back jobs to are the sectors that have actually experienced a tremendous amount of loss of jobs, manufacturing jobs specifically. They dropped almost as fast as the federal workforce. Okay. The first theory of Trumponomics was that tariffs would build up manufacturing work and federal workforce cuts that would free workers for them. Didn't happen. Better way to see that, the slowdown over the past 4 months versus 2024. This isn't then them rebalancing the labor market. It's a fall across basically everything. Manufacturing was also falling last year, and now following their healthcare cuts, medical jobs are finally slowing. Another less clearly stated element of Trumponomics was to bring back jobs for men. However, with tariffs attacking in those industries, men have lost 56,000 jobs over the past 4 months. This is CES data. Women have gained 76% of jobs in 2025 compared to the regular 50%. Meanwhile, another Trumponomics goal was to use deportation quotas to bring jobs back for native-born workers. But you guessed it, that's also failing. Amidst the broader weakening, the native-born unemployment rate is at its highest level since the pandemic. Fantastic. To show that the slowdown is broad, we can look at the diffusion index, or basically the percent of industries that are gaining jobs. It's now below 50% for several previous months, meaning more industries are losing jobs than are gaining them. That happens in slowdowns. Last month, they blamed the revisions, but revisions aren't driving these bad numbers with the baseline so low. And this month, you can't even blame the revisions because you put your guy in charge, right? It was the bad guy. It was the Brandon guy that was lying about the numbers. Now it's your guy. What the f do you do now? But revisions aren't driving these bad numbers with the baseline so low, and revisions are one of the few cyclical predictors of oncoming slowdowns. They should learn from these numbers and turn pro-growth policies. It may not be too late. Their solution to this is, are you like, it's the same as the military, right? It's like, you want upward social mobility? Join the military. Go kill some 14-year-olds overseas, get up, and then maybe you can get free healthcare and a free college education so you can enter the shitty job market that will literally give you nothing with 8 years 8 years after everybody else, all of your other peers went into the same shitty job market, right? And now we're literally turning that in to a domestic military force that is also unaccountable, just like the foreign military force that we have that is completely unaccountable because it's a foreign invading force, right? And that's where we're at. That is where we're at. We got ICE. ICE is the only way that you can get honest pay for an honest day of work. And that honest day of work is what? Terrifying random ass Americans, okay? Terrifying random Americans, kidnapping people at their court hearings instead of allowing them to get proper clearance to work in this country after they have done so for a decade plus. Fantastic. You're becoming a Gestapo force and turning around and creating concentration camps. That's the areas of growth. Those are growth sectors now. Awesome. Meanwhile, this dipshit is also chirping from afar. Looks like we lost India and Russia to deepest, darkest China. May they have a long and prosperous future together. President Donald J. Trump. Everything around us is unwinding and falling apart.
Can rebound from here, right? I mean, job market's been so resilient for so long, but clearly this is another major challenge, and I think the warning signs in the economy are really piling up.
Yeah, and stand by, because I do want to get back to what you just mentioned on the Fed and interest rates. Instead, let's talk politics. Yeah. And I mean, yes, the president likes to say that immigration was a big issue. I'm sure it was. The culture wars, definitely. But we know the biggest reason, and it was the fact that people were hearing from President Biden that the numbers are good, let's just wait, but people didn't feel that way. Now it's the numbers that aren't looking good either.
Exactly. It's a mirror image from kind of 2021 when we had Democrats at that time kind of telling people, don't look at the numbers, don't kind of believe what's in front of you. You kind of hear that from Trump now. This is what we had kind of warned about all through the summer, the prospect that his kind of self-imposed economic crisis, tariffs driving that, could pose not just uncertainty, but a downward job market and really reverse what has been Trump's number one strength coming into this. But I also think you got to add in the big, beautiful bill with this, right? And it speaks to, I think, is a kind of hypocrisy at the heart of Trump's second term. For all the talk about his growth among working class voters, his growth among working class voters of color. What we have seen in terms of economic reality here is a bill that largely amounts to a wealth transfer, a removal of benefits from SNAP and Medicaid. And I think that's the reason why you see some of those poll numbers, particularly on the economy, reversing among the very groups that delivered Trump the White House last year.
Abby?
You know, Trump immediately pivoted to the Fed and Jerome Powell, but when I talk to Republican sources, they're all worried about tariffs, and the full brunt of that has not been felt yet. Some say we may not feel that. But politically speaking, the question I have is, does this impact the gubernatorial elections in November in New Jersey and Virginia? But moreover, when does this hit next year, if it does, and how does that affect the midterms?
And, you know, there was such hullabaloo, to use a word that probably shouldn't be used very much, Anne-Marie, over the fact that the last month, when the jobs report came out and the president wasn't happy about it, he got rid of the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics that compiles them. And so the Commerce Secretary was on this morning, interestingly, before we all knew what the jobs numbers were, and was once again going after BLS, even though the guy that they removed is no longer there.
They're just bent against the president's success. They're rooting against America and against Donald Trump, and that's got to end. So he can't replace somebody, 2 weeks ago, and you expect fundamental change. But what you will get is an agency that's on side.
Well, there isn't fundamental change yet at BLS. The commissioner actually doesn't even have control over the data. The data is collected by statisticians. They sit in different units. They're almost walled off. And then once the press release is written, it's sent to the commissioner, and the commissioner then sends it off to the White House and the CEA. The one issue that Wall Street has in terms of credibility, and this is the gold standard, the jobs report, the U.S. jobs report is the gold standards of economic data. The one issue that Wall Street has is the fact that when you go out and these statisticians are looking for these surveys,
your mic
the
is on
response
too, you can
rate.
speak. Everybody, we got LA Taco's very own Memo in the building right now. We're waiting for Miguel as well. Obviously, make sure you don't show anything to the camera, by the way. That's one right there. So, but we're gonna be heading out and getting some tacos and talking about everything that's going on in Los Angeles specifically. But before we do that, I'm in the process of covering the new jobs numbers that just came out and how devastating things are looking. And you can offer some feedback as well. But for those of you who don't know what LA Taco is, how would you describe it?
We're like a hyper-local publication here in Los Angeles, kind of trying to fill the void of alt news that LA Weekly left behind after they gutted everybody. We cover LA from the street ground up, from food to local politics, investigative journalism. So,
yeah.
Culture and arts as well. Yeah,
you were, originally it started off as just like simply covering local food joints, right?
Yeah, it started off as a blog, and it was a bunch of fools, and what they loved doing was covering graffiti, cannabis, and tacos. And that was just a blog, and then in 2018 it relaunched as an actual publication.
Yeah, and then one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was like what caused you guys to like start participating in like local activism and changing the trajectory a little bit of LA Taco in some ways. I guess it was like an organic change, because it's like, if you're doing like graffiti and stuff like that, but like what specifically caused you guys to change your trajectory a little bit?
Well, we've kind of built up our chops for the last 5-6 years covering LA's political, cultural, and art scene, especially food scene. So we got to build a lot of ties with the community members, restaurants, organizations all around Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. And because of that, when I started attacking those same communities that we've been covering, we kind of feel like we have a duty and obligation to cover them. And we're best situated to do that with having all the connections that we have and the history we have with Los Angeles.
Yeah. So we're here, I got the hat on and everything. Let's get back to the jobs numbers. Obviously, this everything that we talk about, everything that I talk about here is usually interconnected, all the way from what Israel is doing in Gaza, down to the American Gestapo doing these unjustifiable ICE raids, and how that actually factors into the horrible economic output that we're experiencing currently, as the administration is like trying to move the attention away from this stuff to be like, no, you don't understand. Things are actually dope. Hey, what's going on, guys? Things are actually dope. You don't get it. Everything is awesome. And it's when it's not awesome
at all.
Yeah. And it's interesting to see like mainstream media also try to communicate this, at least from like a somewhat of a partisan, from a partisan perspective. Yeah.
Very polished headlines,
Wait, where is Hannah, where's March? Okay, isn't he supposed to be here already? What the hell is going on? My camera guy's not here. My cam op and producer's not here. I don't know what's happening. But yeah.
Yeah, but all of that is connected. You're very right. I think people don't need to tie the strings together. I mean, even like the spyware that ICE is about to use, that Israel's been using to, against their enemies of the government. So they're going to start using that on the observers, people that are out there trying to document all the ICE raids.
Yeah.
Has been so low for months. That is why we saw massive revisions last year. That is why we were seeing massive revisions now, to this point where June actually have a negative print, negative 13,000. That is a huge deal for this economy and for this Federal Reserve. So the problem is that they're not getting 100% of the data when that first print comes out. And this is why you have those revisions. When you talk about, though, the new BLS commissioner, I think only this week his nomination was sent to the Hill. He hasn't even had a hearing yet. And many are still questioning, actually, if he's going to be able to get through Senate confirmation.
Right, exactly. And then there's all of that. But then there's the underlying argument that you're still hearing from the administration, which is to blame the people who are compiling the numbers as opposed to the actual policies. Or maybe it's just the pendulum of the economy.
Yeah, the argument there, it's an interesting one. It would kind of be like if you had an NFL owner, right, whose team just lost big, and instead of changing the quarterback or the play calling or firing the head coach, they go out and fire the scoreboard operator, right? I mean, you might not like the score, but there's probably some bigger issues out there, and shooting the messenger is probably not going to fix anything. But to get back to something we were discussing earlier about the self-imposed nature of some of this, let's look at manufacturing, right? So tariffs, they're supposed to be propping up manufacturing. And what we're actually seeing is that U.S. manufacturing lost another 12,000 jobs in August. This is not an anomaly. It's the fourth straight month of job loss.
It's interesting because they were talking about how this is like the Trump administration has claimed that this is the one area of impact that they're going to fix, right? And part of that was, they were saying that we're going to do this with like tariffs and it's going to boost domestic manufacturing. But in the absence of like a robust industrial base or a robust industrial plan, there is no real trade to protect. And the existing trade that we have, or the existing manufacturing that we have, is on the poultry side, is, Ford F-150 pickup trucks, and perhaps more consequential than both of those things, our military industrial complex. And even then, especially with all of the AI initiatives that we're taking, which is created as a mechanism to displace the existing labor force, the Trump administration is obviously failing disastrously to improve the manufacturing jobs numbers. The other side of the story is, of course, the mass deportation policies that they implemented, claiming that as long as we fire and deport violently the existing labor force, that some of which is not getting the proper documentation that they deserve after working for years and years on U.S. soil and participating in the American economy in very meaningful ways, it's frying these corporations that have lost significant chunks of their workforce. So it's a real, cut off your nose to spite your face situation here.
Right.
And it's crazy because like it's being done to distract people away from the real economic harms that they're experiencing and the anger that they have, to soothe their anger, to say, you feel this way because it's Mexicans. You feel this way because it's Guatemalans. You feel this way because like they're taking your jobs. And it's bullshit. It's complete and utter bullshit.
I mean, I think what's his whole plan is to free up jobs so that Americans could take jobs that immigrants currently have, which is not going to happen. And then when they said that, yeah, nobody's going into the farm fields, he said people on Medicaid are going to go in there and do the work. People that have disabilities.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of, I mean, his whole job plan is disaster.
And now he's live from the White House. He's talking about, he's glad handling again. You got all these like billionaires, millionaires, all these like elites coming in, giving him gifts and sucking up to him, basically telling him what he wants to hear.
How do you, as a billionaire, have any self-respect to go up there and just gobble out his feet, giving him these gifts? Like, it's just so embarrassing.
I think Trump won. They did push back a lot. Like a lot of the elites were like, oh, this guy is just like, this guy is a madman. He's crazy. He's stupid. He's like going to ruin the economy, whatever, all this shit. And now they've realized, like, no, if we just present ourselves as like servile little lords, then the God King will offer us like a bigger piece of the pie. And that's it.
Yeah.
And you see this not only with like, financial elites and whatnot, but you also see this with like European leaders as well, who were very antagonistic to Trump under Trump 1, but have now turned around and are genuflecting.
Yeah.
Every day they just sit there as he like yells about, the Epstein files or whatever the he's talking about. They just like sit there and on the cuck chair and let him go crazy. And they just keep saying, you're right, Mr. President. You're brilliant.
It wasn't an failure. There was no problem. It was a perfect attack, and it knocked out any possible nuclear capability for Iran, which nobody wanted to see, and we weren't going to put up with. So great job, Dan. And we've been talking about this Department of War. So we won the First World War. We won the Second World War. We won everything before that and in between. And
his announcement is he's changing back the Department of Defense to Department of War.
We're going Department of War. And,
I think it's really interesting because like there is a level of honesty to Trump. This is like very Trump to just be like it's aesthetics focused, it's optics focused, but it's like almost a recognition of like what America does. Yeah, it's evil. Yeah, we're doing evil shit. What are you gonna do about it? It makes a lot of sense that he would do this.
Yeah, I mean, his whole goal is to be an emperor, really.
Yeah.
Assert all power, take all authority, and show force around the world. So.
Yeah.
Dan Raisin came to say a few words, please.
Mr. President, thank you. After winning a war for independence in 1789, George Washington established the War Department, and Henry Knox was his first Secretary of War. And this country won every major war after that, to include World War I and World War II. Total victory, Mr. President, as you said. Then 150 years after that, we changed the name after World War II from the Department of War.
Yeah, honestly, since they changed it, since World War II, we haven't had like a just war anyway, So maybe we'll go back to only doing. I'm kidding. I was gonna say maybe we'll go back to like fighting anti-fascist wars, but I doubt that.
That's how you trying to tell people that they won every single war. Don't bring up Vietnam. Don't bring up Afghanistan. Don't bring up.
Yeah.
It's about restoring. Words
Just
matter. It's restoring,
like,
as you've guided us to, Mr. President, restoring the
genocidal
warrior
conquest.
ethos. Restoring
And
victory
abject failures,
and clarity
but I
as
guess
an end state.
Technically,
restoring
you're not supposed to.
intentionality
You're not supposed to.
the
War is
use of
not
force.
waged to be
So,
won
that
any
your
longer
direction, Mr.
anyway. It's
President,
supposed to
the War Department
continue,
is gonna fight
and you just like
decisively,
move
not
the
endless
budgets
conflicts.
around from one
It's
to the
gonna fight
next.
to win, not to lose. We're going to go on offense, not just on defense. Maximum lethality, not tepid legality. Violent effect, not politically correct. We're going to raise up warriors.
He's
not
rhyming,
just
bro.
defenders. So this War
That's
Department.
what I was about to say. Is he
This
reading a
fucking-
poem?
Just
This
like America is
drunk
back.
rapist,
Thank you for your
dude. I
leadership
can't
and
believe
your
this
clarity. We're
motherfucker
going to
is
set
the
the tone
Secretary of Defense.
for this
He's
country.
using big words
America
right now.
first,
I'm proud
peace
of him.
through strength,
Look at
brought
him.
to you
Look at him
by the War
improved.
Department. We're back.
Peaceful president, by the way. Remember, he was like, "No new wars. I'm gonna end Ukraine. I'm gonna end Gaza in one day. Day one."
We really chose to be very politically correct or wokey, and we just fight forever. And then we'd, win, lose. We wouldn't lose, really. We just fight to sort of tie. We never wanted to win wars that every one of them we would have won easily with just a couple of little changes or a couple of little edicts. You know, I was told that ISIS would take 5 years to win. And Dan Kane, when I told him how long would it take, he said, I think about 4 weeks, sir. I said, what do you mean 4 weeks? I was told 5 years by the people in Washington. You know who they were? 5 years. I said, you can't do it in 4 weeks. I actually flew to Iraq to meet with him, and I met him at a big air base. And remember that famous day, right? It turned out to be a famous day for our country because you're now the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, which is the biggest deal. And he is because he did things that everybody said he couldn't do. So they said it was going to be 5 years, and he knocked them out in about 4 weeks total, 100%. We took over, and ISIS was gone. And pretty amazing, but we never fought to win, and now if we have to fight it at all, you know, we solved 7 wars. We have the one that I thought was going to be probably one of the easier ones, and that's with President Putin and Ukraine.
Why would you think that's one of the easier ones?
Turned out to be one that's a little bit more difficult, but the 7 are done. They were supposed to be much more difficult to solve. I solved every one of them, and we're going to get the other one done too. But it turned out to be a little bit more difficult than I thought. And it'll get done or they'll be held to pay. But because they're losing 6 to 7, it used to be 5. I used to tell you 5, now it's almost 7. I guess 7,000 people last week, 7,813 people, young soldiers died. Russian and Ukrainian, not American soldiers. But it's a shame. It's just, you know, they're human lives, and I want to see it stop. But General Kane's done a fantastic job. And again, defeated ISIS, which they said would take a long time. And it didn't take a long time at all. And did other things that people said really couldn't happen. We have the greatest equipment in the world. We have the greatest soldiers in the world. Dan, say a few words, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. It's a true honor for me today.
Yes, he is covering his hand.
The incredible
because he's
men
insecure.
and women of America's joint force. Today and every day, the 2.8 million service men and women stand ready to fulfill our sacred duty to protect America at home and abroad. As the president said, America's military is the single most powerful fighting force in the world. The mission you and the secretary have given us is clear and unambiguous to deliver peace through overwhelming strength. And I remind everyone that the U.S. military can reach any adversary at the time and place of our choosing. Service to this nation is an incredible gift, and we're grateful
It is
and
a
honored
gift.
every day to do so. Thank you, Mr. President.
Well, thank you, and it's an honor to sign this. And we will do that right now.
Look, I'm not a liberal, and I don't believe in like the power of words or optics in general all that much. I care about policy. I care about impact. I care about consequences. Okay. Having said that, however, this move in the direction of taking ownership over bad shit is certainly not a good thing. Because we're just dropping the notion that we even care about international rule-based order and openly becoming indecent. Okay, whether it's changing the name of the Department of Defense to the Department of War, or whether it be what we did in Venezuela, off the coastline of Venezuela, where we turned around and we just lasered a boat with 11 people in it. And then just claimed that those 11 people were actually narco terrorists, drug traffickers who are now designated as terrorists themselves. It's ridiculous. Okay, it's completely ridiculous. Like back in the day, that kind of war crime was at least like masked because they were worried about like having to face accountability. This means that they know that there's no accountability coming. And they know they can get away with it. They know they can get the public to not actually demand any sort of accountability whatsoever. And that means that it's only going to happen with more and more frequency. It's only going to get more violent, as a matter of fact. And that's a terrifying prospect because, once again, every dollar that is spent on rockets, every dollar that's spent on bombs that we send to Israel is a dollar that we could be spending on ourselves to build our infrastructure, to rebuild it, to fix it, to fix the housing market. That's a dollar that you could have spent on a brick to build a home. That's a dollar that you could have spent on books for school children, for food for school children. And yet, instead of doing all of that, we're just going into this permanent state of conflict and war and only going to escalate that. And it's truly terrifying for America's future.
So stupid. And they were fools. The people were fools. No, we're.
Are you saying they weren't drug traffickers?
And I think that indicates.
I am saying that there is no evidence that they were. And even if they were drug traffickers, you can't just kill random drug traffickers, man. What the are you talking about?
In another country.
What do you do? What do you mean? Who cares? Okay, let's say they're drug traffickers. Let's say they're the biggest criminal drug traffickers of all time, even though the DEA's own information for years and years shows that Venezuela is not a narco trafficking hub anyway. Okay, it's not a narcotics hub at all. What the are you talking about? Okay, it's not even on the right side of the continent. Okay, it's the wrong side of the continent. That's not where the drug trade is happening. The wrong sea. Okay. But having said that, even if it was true, what do you mean? You just laser a boat off the Venezuelan coastline? Like, what the are we doing? Just, you can't seize and apprehend the ship? There's 11 dudes in there. The American Navy, you mean to tell me that the American Navy has, one, any right or responsibility to be around the Venezuelan coastline altogether is already ridiculous. But let's say they have to be there. Let's say this is a real problem and drug trafficking is a significant issue off the Venezuelan coastline, even though there is not. Okay? You're telling me that the Navy can't actually seize this ship, capture it, do a proper investigation, do proper arrests? What are you, insane? This is the kind of stupidity that allows this administration to get away with doing this shit, okay? This is the reason why there is no real accountability, because people just go, well, I guess they're drug traffickers, so I guess it's fine that we just assassinated them. You know?
Very strongly.
How many warships did he send over
question
to
as to
bomb
whether or not
one
they
little
have
boat?
to, but
It's
we'll
like,
put it
yeah, there's
before
like
Congress.
6 ships around right now. The Venezuelan, but it's because it's not because they bombed that boat. It's because I think they're trying to create casus belli for full blown destabilization. It's like 7 Navy ships.
Yeah. Or anything. We're going to be doing it not in the most expensive. We're going to start changing the stationery as it comes due and lots of things like that. We're not going to be doing things like have been done in the past where they change the name of forts that shouldn't have been changed. Those names of the forts should not have been changed, at least for the most part. And as you know, many of them have been changed back already. At the request of the communities, every one of those communities said, we want our name back, like Fort Bragg as an example. The people in that community wanted that name back. They refused to call it anything else.
Dude, this is literally like, I don't know how people don't understand this, but what this is the exact like reversal of what liberals do. Okay? Liberals will try to sanitize the language in an effort not to actually like implement any sort of material change that is beneficial for people. They'll go in the woke direction, and these guys are basically doing it in the reversal. They're doing it in the anti-woke direction. It's like, oh yeah, we changed it back to Fort Bragg. Okay. Like, not only is this deeply unproductive, but it's also like immoral as well. At least when liberals are trying to sanitize the language, you can point to like trying to move in a more empathetic direction, right? This is just the same shit. It's vice signaling as opposed to virtue signaling. It's stupid.
The country has either, by the way. So you're going to see things that are pretty amazing, but it's really about winning.
And what about the security guarantees aspect of that with Ukraine, sir?
Well, we'll work that out. We'll help them. Look, we want to save a lot of lives, so we'll do something with that. I think people expect that. We'll help them. Europe will be first in by far, and they want to be first, and they want to see it end. Europe wants to see it end, and it'll end. It'll end all of a sudden. It's going to come together. You watch. Yeah, did you want something, right?
Current satellite imagery shows that the fleet has consolidated and the Marine Expeditionary Force is now positioned about 250 miles away from the Venezuelan coast. And it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Wait, no, it's 4, 7. It's 7 and a plane.
Narco terrorists. Is that going to be a critical function of the department?
It depends on the individual instance, you know. We don't want drugs coming in from Venezuela or anybody else or any place else, and we'll be tough on that. We don't want human trafficking. We don't want to see people coming in where they open their prisons from all over the world.
No, the sanitation liberals do is more insidious, to be honest. Fake compassion is worse, as it's not to move in a better direction. It's to stop any movement at all. Fair. I understand where you're coming from with that. But, I mean, this goes back to the same dynamic that people always talk about. And I want to hear your perspective on this. Like, some people will say, like, it's better that people are just, like, openly being racist rather than, like, sheltering their racist ambition and like masquerading as like someone who would be offended at the prospect of being called racist while being racist anyway. And to me, I don't think it matters.
I mean, truth and honesty always is what people desire and want, until what you hear is hurtful or pisses you off or angers you. I think people forget to include back into these conversations the issues of respect, right? Just genuine respect for somebody else, for a human being, for having a different opinion, for having a different viewpoint, or just being a different person, right? Altogether. Yeah. So people were like, it's like, look, you can have a different perspective, you have a different opinion, but also respect it. Like, and I think what's been lost in this whole conversation about honesty and truth is respect.
Yeah, but I will say this much. While I understand why people think like it's better to be open about our violent desires, I still think that this expands the permission structure and it makes people feel more comfortable about behaving in this way. And the example I'll always use is Twitter, right? Twitter, when it had like some semblance of like terms of service, right, was still filled to the brim with like a bunch of different psychopaths, but it was never as bad as it is now. The reason why it got, we all know how consequential that's been. It has expanded the permission structure for people to be openly white supremacists. And when other people see that, and especially if they see open white supremacists get rewarded, it makes people in the margins feel more comfortable with leaning into these like hateful narratives, with these hateful attitudes. And the most consequential aspect of that is when the Trump administration is going after quote unquote woke or whatever, and they're doing this kind of thing. Yeah, the wokey war that they're waging. I feel like in the short term, this will bring people on board with whatever the Donald Trump is doing. It makes people recognize like, oh, this is what America's doing. Okay, I'm on board with it. Rather than live under the false notion that they can be a peaceful country, that they want to demand peace. Okay? When the mask is off and the battle lines are drawn, you might not like how many people are on your side, how many people are truly anti-fascist, as opposed to how many people who are comfortable with fascism, or at least can turn a blind eye to accelerated fascism. You know?
Serving our nation is an incredible gift that we give, and the reward on that gift pays back exponentially year over year. And I think the young people of America are seeing the importance of service, and whether it's in any of our armed services or in local police, fire, or rescue, service is an important thing that I personally encourage, and I know everyone else in government service sees that same reward.
And Pete, on recruitment, what do you think?
I was down at Fort Benning, the newly properly renamed Fort Benning, yesterday, watching Army basic training, and they're so full they can't barely handle the throughput. It is truly historic across all the services, as you said. It's been a surge into the, I was going to say the Defense Department, but I will say the War Department. And that you might almost call it a vibe shift, an attitude shift, a feeling that the country is back, that service is back. And there were military families last year.
All the white supremacists, said,
I don't know if I can recommend, I wrote a book on this. I don't know if I can recommend service.
Dude, I'm telling you,
to my son or daughter,
it's so
given what's
cooked
been done
like,
to our military.
As,
you heard it over
conditions
and over
worsen,
and over
as
again.
people can't find jobs, the only available jobs are the federal jobs programs, whether it be the Department of War, Department of Defense, now the Department of War, or ICE, then yeah, people are going to gravitate towards that. But you have to look at the output. At the end of the day, is that good? Is it better if the only available jobs are jobs that are, Trump's secret police, or jobs that require to go and, like, I don't know, defend poppy fields in Afghanistan so the JSOC operations can have a dark money fund that they can utilize when they engage in these sorts of assassination missions all around the world? Like, is that actually a good thing? I don't think so. I think it would be much better if our federal jobs program was directed at solving some of the major issues that Americans experience, fixing our infrastructure, like I keep repeating over and over again, building fiber optic cable lines all over the goddamn place, and building housing, building public housing, so that people are no longer at the mercy of profiteers that have paywalled shelter, that find themselves in the throes of homelessness, discarded away by these administrations and cast aside and even further criminalized and prosecuted.
ICE was just doing its job. But I know nothing about the instance. It happened a little while ago. Okay?
There has been some pushback on that, though, from South Korea already. And of course, they pledged to invest $150 billion in the U.S. when they were just here, last week. Are you concerned
Well, and
at
they
all?
have the right to sell cars and things in our country. It's not like a one-sided deal.
Are you concerned at all about, your immigration agenda potentially clashing with these economic goals?
Well, we want to get along with other countries, and we want to have a great, stable workforce. And we had, as I understand it, a lot of illegal aliens, some not the best of people, but we had a lot of illegal aliens working there. So, look, they're doing their job. That's what they have to do. These are people that came through with Biden. They came through illegally. They came into our country. So we have to do our job.
We might have to do 2 cars. You guys have a car here?
And we have several cars.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Tasked Congress with proposing and passing a crime bill. What are some things that
You know what the goal is with all this shit, right? You know what direction he's going.
Well, I think one of the things is the cash.
I mean, I think the direction is just like you said, some form of American fascism. It might not look exactly the same way as like Adolf Hitler or Mussolini or whatever, but like that's the direction that we're headed towards.
What about this theory and prediction that he's going after the cartels, right? He wants to attack the cartels in Mexico, and he's going after Venezuela because kind of textbook history, right? You go after a group, you demonize them, now you make them enemies of the government in an act of war, and now they're, potential,
Oh yeah.
So then what they did with the Japanese,
internment,
put them in an internment camp, which is why they're building so many prisons now. Like
Yeah.
the new one that just came out of Mojave Desert. It's huge. So I think I don't know. The way I see ICE going, I see this being a thing that's going to happen. That they're going to start not only imprisoning Latinos, they're going to be holding them as potential enemies of the state.
Yeah, and I think like in that situation, there's like I feel like that's going to be turned into a work camp / death camp situation in the same way that we saw in Nazi Germany, where
Yeah.
like, what better way to boost the American economy than to force people to slave away in these internment structures,
Which they already
in
do.
these sorts of concentration camps.
You know who's the biggest guilty state is California. California is the one that has the most forced labor in the prison camps.
Yeah. All right. Miguel's
So-
here as well, and
It's
we'll move.
a
We'll
tremendous
move out
compliment
soon
to
after we introduce our
our
guests,
military, what
the
we
rest
did.
of our
The
guests
National
as well.
Guard's done a fantastic job.
Or I guess we could do that on camera. It's easier probably.
Yes.
But yeah, you're right. People don't understand. They think California's woke, and they think like because like
hilarious.
they love Gavin Newsom. They're like, California's woke. What are you talking about? It's like, no, man. We have one of the worst prison structures in this country, and it's so bad that it even forced the hand of Gavin Newsom to like try to lower the prison population, which then everybody yelled about, where they were like, "Oh, you're gonna let rapists out on the streets." It's like, no, dude. It's like
Small time people got arrested for whatever.
nonviolent offenders and all these other
People
like,
peeing on the street or whatever.
Yeah, other people that are in the prison system that have already gone through the majority of their sentence, get in front of a board, and their sentence is like accelerated. Basically, it's like it's sentence commutation after a board still reviews whether or not they have been rehabilitated, and it was only done because there was just no space in the prisons. And it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous that like even that was seen as a bridge too far by so many people that were like complaining about it.
I mean, our prisons are so full that they literally have to release people with like smaller offenses,
Yeah.
which then the right takes and be like, oh, they're releasing criminals back into the street. Like, I mentioned the fact that our prisons are maxed out, over capacity.
Yeah, but that first part of it, the story that's perhaps significantly more consequential, is the the real indication that like California's not woke at all. Our prisons are overflowing. Wait, someone said something funny about LA Taco. Hold on. Where is it? Dude, LA Taco was rating my uncle's taco spot TYQ, and now my uncle doesn't follow him because he thinks LA Taco is too woke. Shaking my head.
I know who his uncle is.
That's so funny.
I know who they're talking about.
Y'all are too woke.
Yeah.
Damn, he just aired out his uncle like that. That's crazy.
I know exactly who his uncle is.
Damn, dude. Now you're gonna see him. Now you're gonna see him be like, "You think I'm too woke? The fuck's that?"
That's so funny that people think we're too woke, but it's like, look, we've gone after all our local politicians, which are all Democrats. So if we're like woke and liberal, like why are we going after them?
You're going after them in the wrong way. You need to be going after them because in an anti-woke fashion.
I mean, we're just about holding people accountable. So if that's woke, whatever.
He said, "LA Taco is my uncle now." After he aired his uncle out, he's got a new uncle. It's you. You're the new uncle.
All right, nephew, let's go get some tacos.
Yeah. All right. Are we ready to go? Hasan Reaction is one of the best ones in the React channel.